Hey, this is Mike from the Run Testers, and in this video we're going to be talking about this. This is the new Wahoo Trackr Heart Rate Monitor chest strap. Now, we haven't seen a chest strap from Wahoo since 2020, and that's when we got the second generation versions of the Tickr and the Tickr X. Now, with the Trackr, it's definitely kind of stripping things back, really focusing on delivering that kind of accuracy, that kind of comfort, and making sure it's something that, you know, you're going to want to wear. But crucially, it is moving to a rechargeable battery setup. So unlike things that we're getting from Polar and Garmin, but we are getting from MyZone, you are able to charge this heart rate monitor. Now, myself, Nick and Kieran have all been testing this monitor. We're going to take you through what's new, what's different from the previous Wahoo heart rate monitor, how it compares to the competition, get you into some running experiences, and then let you know whether you should buy, whether you should be excited about the Wahoo Trackr for your runs. So here's what you need to know about the Wahoo Trackr. This is a heart rate monitor chest strap with Bluetooth and Ant Plus connectivity that's priced at $79.99 in the UK or $89.99 in the US. That makes it cheaper than the Polar H10, but not quite as cheap as the Polar H9 or the Wahoo Tickr, which is still available to buy currently. Design-wise, Wahoo has ditched the integrated design and front-facing clasp featured on the Tickr monitors and moved to a clip-on sensor and side clasp, much like other heart rate monitors from Garmin and Polar. The sensor includes an LED light to indicate pairing status and, more notably, a charging port at the base as Wahoo moves to a rechargeable setup. Interestingly, it uses the same charging cable as the latest Shox headphones. Features-wise, there's support to pair up to 3 Bluetooth devices simultaneously, and there is strong compatibility with a host of apps, including Strava, watches from Garmin, and the Apple Watch. You can use it with Wahoo's companion app if you don't have a watch or another device to pair it to as well. There's no onboard memory, nor is there the advanced running metrics Wahoo offered on its Tickr X monitor. In terms of battery life, the rechargeable setup should deliver over 100 hours according to Wahoo.
The design of the Wahoo Trackr has been all good for me. It's a very comfortable heart rate strap to wear. I think the longest workout I've worn it for was probably about 2.5 hours in the heat, and I've had no skin irritation. It hasn't slipped around or anything like that. It actually fits on a Polar H10 strap as well. I found that by accident by just using a strap off my radiator, and it happened to be the Polar one, which fit the Wahoo absolutely fine. It's a nice small pod. I do like that the charger is compatible with Shox headphones chargers as well, which I do have lying around the house. So if you have those, that is a little bit of an extra bonus. And in general, I think using this port should hopefully make it a little bit more robust. I have broken heart rate monitors in the past when changing the coin battery on them, so I'm in favour of a rechargeable battery like this, and it's obviously a very long lasting one. So yeah, all good for me on design and comfort.
Use this on long runs with no troubling discomfort at all. The strap, I'd say, is a shade softer and more pliable than the Polar H10, particularly here where the sensor pads are. So it flexes nicely with any kind of movement of the body. I wouldn't say it's more or less comfortable than the Polar H10 or the Garmin HRM Pro and Pro Plus. It's about the same. If we're being picky about the minor details, I much prefer the Polar H10's clasp fastening to this hook that you get on the Wahoo. It's just a bit easier to use. The flashing lights you get on the front are handy to see whether you're paired and tracking. The Garmin and Polar rivals don't have that, and it's a kind of nice to have, but I don't really miss it with those other chest straps. The strap is hand washable, same as the Polar. But unlike the Garmin HRMs, in theory you can replace the straps here once they get too old and smelly because the sensor comes off completely. That doesn't happen with the Garmin's. The other thing I really liked was that you can rename this chest strap in the app. All chest straps should offer this. It makes it so much easier to make sure you're pairing your own sensor in a sea of sensors. Now, one thing that always worries me is having a unique charging cable. If you lose the magnetic USB cable here that you've got, you're in trouble. I know that's true of a lot of devices, but I'm always pleased when there's a bit more of a universal solution for charging. Just makes it easier. Takes away one of those worrying points.
So if a heart rate monitor chest strap doesn't feel comfortable to wear, ultimately it falls at the first hurdle. Now, with the Wahoo Trackr, there are some changes from the previous kind of Tickr heart rate monitors. I think the first thing is it's no longer kind of integrated or fully integrated design, so the pod isn't built into the strap. It's also moved away from the kind of front-facing kind of clip to the kind of side one that we're all kind of used to with Polar's heart rate monitors, MyZone, Garmin as well too. And it's kind of one of those things where, did it really need to change it? Did having it clipping at the front really, alter my experience of using them? Not really. So I think having it this way has been absolutely fine. From a comfort point of view, it's been, no issues whatsoever. I've done long runs in it. I've raced with it as well too. I've used it for other kind of non-running activities, and it's been absolutely fine from a comfort point of view. In terms of other things, obviously you've got this kind of notification light, which kind of indicates when it's successfully connected to Bluetooth or your Bluetooth device. The charging port is now at the base of the sensor, and it clips on very easily as well too. So yeah, nothing massive to report in terms of that. Very kind of standard kind of heart rate monitor chest strap setup now compared to the previous monitors, and yeah, overall it's been very comfortable. No issues to report on that front.
To test the accuracy of the Wahoo Trackr, I have been wearing it at the same time as a Polar H10 tracker throughout my workouts over the last week and a half or so. I've just been wearing them both on my chest, just one on top of each other, and throughout all of the testing I've done, it has been beat for beat with the Polar H10. Like, I've really not seen any problems with the accuracy of this tracker at all. Pretty much as you'd expect from a chest strap monitor from a top company like Wahoo. Yeah, no concerns at all. I've done some testing interval workouts with sharps, ups and downs, progression workouts, long, easy workouts, and yeah, the accuracy of the heart rate looks spot on to me, so I have no problems with it at all. Connectivity is similar. It's been very easy to connect. During the time I've had it, I've actually connected it to Apple Watch Ultra 2, a 4 and a 965 and a 165, Coros Pace 3, my phone, and yeah, it connects very easily every single time. Like, I had it connected to 2 watches today on the run, all very good, no dropouts in the readings or anything like that. So performance has been really good. Like, I'm obviously just going to use it for running. You don't have the onboard memory here, so that's going to be a concern to people who want to try and use it for swimming and that kind of thing. But as a runner, this does exactly what I want it to do. Put it on, connects instantly, tracks accurately, take it off, all good.
Now in testing, I put the Wahoo Trackr up against the Polar H10 on some easy, steady efforts, some track intervals, and also doing a bunch of sauna heat training as well. In all of my tests, the Wahoo Trackr matched the Polar H10 performance really closely, and overall, I found there wasn't all that much to choose when it came to accuracy. During both the steady runs and the intervals, there were some instances though where the tracker here served up lower readings by 4 or 5 beats per minute in little instances throughout, but it was quite fleeting, and for the majority of time this matched the Polar H10 beat for beat. Now, I've always used the H10 as the go-to gold standard on accuracy, but for my test I think Wahoo has excellent accuracy here too that can get close to rivaling that. Now when it comes to connectivity, I had a good experience here too. This linked easily with my Garmin, Coros and Polar watches. There is a bit of a lag when you first put it on to get it moving and get the connection in the app, but it's seconds and it's not really that troubling. Overall, good performance on connectivity too.
So when we look at performance and accuracy, and I'm also going to talk a little bit about the connectivity side of things, because I think that's really important here, and that's something that I think really has shaped my experience with previous Wahoo heart rate monitor chest straps, and maybe been reasons why I've not kind of stuck with them previously. Now, in terms of performance and the heart rate accuracy, it's been very good for me overall. What I expect to see from a heart rate monitor chest strap. Now, I've been using it up against a Garmin HRM Pro Plus chest strap as well. I've been wearing them together. I paired to 2 different watches, and what I found is the data has kind of largely matched up what I'd expect to see in the sessions that I've used them in. Even the kind of high intensity stuff when I've raced with them as well too, the data has looked very good, and I don't have any concerns around the accuracy side of things, and nothing has kind of been too alarming at all, I would say, on that front. The connectivity thing, yeah, it's been pretty good. I've used it on a few different watches. I've used it on a few kind of connected kind of gym equipment as well, so some non-running stuff as well too. I've used it with the Strava app as well, and I've used it with the Wahoo app as well too, the companion app, and it's all been generally fine. I think there's been one instance where I've had some connectivity issues when I was using it with an indoor rower, but obviously from a running perspective it's generally been fine now. But yeah, from an accuracy point of view, what I'd expect to see from a heart rate monitor chest strap, very good, and I felt very satisfied with the level of accuracy I'm seeing at kind of steady runs, high intensity runs, racing. It looks very good for me overall.
The battery life of the tracker, like I said, I've had it for about a week and a half now, and I've used it probably for about 8 hours of tracking, and it's only dropped 2% of its battery life so far. Now, generally, I find with rechargeable devices like this, the time it takes to go from 100 to 99 is a lot longer than the time it takes to go from 99 to 98 and so on. So it probably isn't going to continue this very slow rate of drop off, but I do think that 100 hours stated by Wahoo is certainly in play, and that's long enough to not really miss that big extra feature of a coin battery, which obviously will last something like 350, 400 hours of use. You're not going to have to charge this that often. You don't have to change a coin battery very often either, but that is a little bit more of a faff when you do have to change it. And like I say, I have broken a heart rate monitor in the past when I was changing the coin battery. So yeah, it's really very good, the battery life. It's going to be in line with what Wahoo say. In terms of what you do when you take it off, I actually asked Wahoo directly about this, like, can I just take it off and leave it on the strap to hang up to dry? And they say you can, like, it's not really likely to massively affect the battery life. Like, I still clip it off most of the time and put it on the side, so it's definitely not, you know, thinking it's still on the chest and still working and draining the battery life when not in use. But it seems like you're going to get plenty of time in standby mode, plenty of time tracking, so the battery life is certainly very strong. I've tested some other rechargeable chest straps and they haven't offered as long a battery life as this. Like with the MyZone Switch, it was a bit vague. It was kind of 3 to 6 months of tracking, which is obviously very dependent on how much you're going to use it. And then the Kuspo H10Z I also tested recently as 50 hours battery life, so 100 hours is really good. Certainly something that would be fine for me, not something I'd be thinking about very often. Maybe if you're a bit more of a hardcore triathlete, racking up a lot of hours every week in terms of training, you might enjoy the benefits of that coin battery lasting, you know, 3 or 4 times as much, but 100 hours is a lot, and my usage suggests that it's going to be at least hitting that number.
Battery life then, in my testing, I've clocked around 10 hours training with the Wahoo Trackr, and the battery life has barely been touched. This is one area where I think this is really impressive. It's dropped about 3%, and this looks to be a standout feature for this chest strap. We finally got a rechargeable sensor with a staying power that pushes close to the coin cell chest straps like the Polar H10 and the Garmin HRM Pro Plus. That's a really happy thing. It remains to be seen how the battery degrades over time on this, of course, but at the moment that is a really big tick, and it's a big win on battery life for this.
So in terms of battery life, now obviously this is the big story here with the Wahoo Trackr. Now Wahoo is promising up to 100 hours, and obviously that can vary depending on the conditions that you're using the heart rate monitoring. Now what I found in general is that the battery life has been pretty good overall. I've seen kind of an hour's worth of running, the battery has dropped pretty consistently by about 1%, which for me looks like the numbers are going to look pretty good overall. Now in terms of, you know, knowing that the battery is dropping or what, you know, what the battery status is in, you've got to use that kind of app if you're kind of use it looking through your Bluetooth settings, and maybe pairing it up to a watch, and that's a way to kind of gauge and keep an eye on that. But I think, you know, in terms of what I'm seeing, the battery life performance has been very good. Obviously you've got a proprietary charging cable here. As we mentioned, if you do have a pair of kind of new Shocks headphones, it's the same cable, but in terms of charging, it seemed generally pretty secure in terms of that magnetic port. So yeah, from a charging point of view, not ideal that it's a proprietary cable, you know, it's another cable to have to keep an eye on, but in terms of, you know, how well it's worked, it's been absolutely fine. So yeah, the battery life has looked pretty good for me in my testing, and I feel like those numbers don't feel overly ambitious based on my testing.
To be, this is a really good heart rate monitor. It's probably my favourite rechargeable chest strap I've tested. It's a bit more comfortable than the Kuspo H10Z, although that is a fair bit cheaper, and also offers a lot more battery life. Been very accurate and reliable for me so far in testing, matching up to what I've seen from the Polar H10. So I've no real concerns about its core tracking features. I think they're very good. You are going to get some extra features from other brands though. If you look at the top Polar and Garmin heart rate straps, for one, you're going to get onboard memory and the ability to use it for swimming then and download that data to match up to your workout. Don't get that with the Wahoo Trackr. And also there are chest straps that now offer a bit more in terms of things like running dynamics or running power, or even measuring your speed and distance when running indoors using the Garmin HRM Pro. I view all those as quite nice features, but they're not essential to me. But if you haven't got a watch that's doing those kind of things, or you do view those features as essential, you obviously don't get them on the Wahoo Trackr, and you are still paying a price that's fairly high, quite close to what you find the Polar H10 for, especially if you find the Polar H10 in sales. There's also the Polar H9, which is really quite similar to the H10 without the onboard memory, and that's very accurate as well, and going to come in a bit cheaper than this if you don't mind changing that coin battery. So I think you can find better value out there. I've mentioned it before, the Kuspo H10Z was pretty reliable chest strap for me. That's also rechargeable. So there's definitely some competition out there, but I did really enjoy using the Wahoo Trackr. Found it accurate. It's a tracker I'll probably carry on using for the foreseeable, just to give it a bit more of a long-term test. And yeah, it does everything you expect it to very well.
Verdict then, and from my testing, I would say that Wahoo has built a good chest strap heart rate monitor here, with enough to be a close rival for the Polar H10 on comfort, connectivity and battery life and convenience. And it's pretty close on accuracy too, up against Garmin's leading trackers. If you're happy to forego extra run tracking smarts, run cadence, all that kind of thing, it's a very viable, cheaper alternative to the HRM Pro and the HRM Pro Plus. The killer app for me though is Trackr's rechargeable battery, with that longer lasting runtime than previous rechargeable sensors. It's just one less thing to worry about. If I'm being picky, I wish it had a clasp, not a hook, but that's a small thing. It's pretty sensibly priced to compete with Polar's top tracker. And I think it's a toss-up between this and the H10. If push comes to shove, I'm probably choosing the Polar H10 just for that bit of extra accuracy. But I'm definitely tempted by the Wahoo's charging smarts, and I think this will do a good job in anyone's run tracking setup. Well priced, very capable. Yeah, a thumbs up overall from me.
So my verdict on the Wahoo Trackr is that it has been a very good heart rate monitor chest strap to use for my runs, for the racing that I've done with it as well too. First and foremost, it has been accurate, it has been very comfortable to wear, and you know, despite it moving to a rechargeable battery, unlike the previous monitors, it has been, the battery life has looked very good for me. Overall, connectivity wise, it's been generally good as well too, though I have had a couple of question marks over some kind of instances, but generally it has been very good. Now, when I compare it to what else is out there, it is cheaper than other heart rate monitor chest straps. I think the most natural one to compare it to is the Polar H10, generally what we consider the kind of gold standard in terms of heart rate monitor chest straps and delivering that kind of accuracy. Now that is a little bit more in terms of price, but in terms of what you're getting on top of that price, you're getting a stronger level of durability against moisture and water. You are crucially, I think, getting a little bit of kind of memory there as well, so you don't have that kind of massive reliance on another device to kind of store that kind of, you know, data from your workout as well too in your runs. So I think if you could spend a little bit more, I think it's worth going for the Polar H10. If you are looking for a cheaper heart rate monitor chest strap, which really kind of puts kind of comfort and accuracy there first and foremost, and offers good connectivity, and despite having a rechargeable battery, seems to show good battery life performance as well, then this is definitely one to consider. But I think if you're looking for a little bit more in terms of that feature set for a little bit more money, I would probably go for the Polar H10. Okay, so there you have it. That is our multi-test review of the Wahoo Trackr. Now, if you've got any questions for any of us, do let us know in the comments. As always, like and subscribe, hit that little bell to find out about our latest videos, and yeah, we'll see you for the next Run Testers video.